welcome to the Podcast Corner. Maybe I want to have some talking and investigate we are more casual and like the as well have been asking questions.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a fresh new episode of our podcast for 2025. And our first guest of the year is a wonderful woman called Maggie Philbin.
And I'm absolutely be delighted and very honoured to be your first guest of 2025.
And a happy one to you. What gave you the idea of deciding to become a presenter in early life?
Well, if I'm honest, I there wasn't a moment where I decided to be a presenter. I think life can be quite a strange thing. And when I was a teenager, I loved animals. I still do. The cat will probably appear in the back of my shot here any second. And I wanted to be a vet, but I didn't get on very well with chemistry. So I did arts at university. And while I was at university, and doing the final set of exams, I saw an ad. And this is obviously in the pre-internet days. So this ad was in a newspaper and it said, "Do you want to be a top TV personality?" And I thought it was some kind of a joke, that it was a complete scam. So I wrote back to the box number, and the box numbers are, it's a weird thing, back in the day where if you didn't want someone to know who you were, you put a box number, which is why I thought the ad was very suspicious in the beginning. Anyway, it turned out to be the BBC, and they were doing a new Saturday morning programme called Swap Shop. And I still to this day think how extraordinary it was. But out of the hundreds of people who replied to this ad, I got the job. And so it was very accidental. And when I think back to that time, the only reason I replied to the ad, because as I say, I thought it was a joke, was because I was in the middle of exams and it was a bit of kind of displacement activity so that I didn't have to think about the exam. I could respond to this ad. And that catapulted me into being a presenter, first of all, on children's programs and then on science and technology programs. So it was a very odd thing. And before that, hand on heart, it had never crossed my mind that I would appear in front of a television camera. That was not what I thought I was going to do. So it's odd, really. And I think it's something that when I work with a lot of young people now, and what I always say is, there's two things, really. None of us ever know what we're capable of. We're capable of all sorts of things, and we tend to hold ourselves back because we think we can't do things. And secondly, that opportunities appear that not necessarily when you expect them to. They appear out of the blue. And so it's always a good thing to say yes rather than no when an opportunity is put in front of you, even if it absolutely scares you. As long as it's safe to say yes, because you never know where it might lead.
That's wonderful.
It's extraordinary. I mean, sometimes when I tell people that story, it feels almost unbelievable. But so it was a great opportunity for me. But I owe a huge amount to some people at the BBC who took a massive risk on me, Rosemary Gill and Crispin Evans, because they had to teach me everything.
But how did your study help you? Your studies in art, how did they help you?
Yeah, I've often thought about this, Luke, and it's interesting. So at university, I did a 4-year course. It was English and drama. And the two departments couldn't have been more different. The English department was massive. I don't know how many people were on my course. 200. It was big. The drama department was tiny. There were 30 of us in the year. And so it was very intense. And so I think that those years at university, actually, it was almost like the school of hard knocks, because you had to accept there were some people who were brilliant actors, really brilliant. I mean, that I realized, right, you're never going to be an actor. These people are great. So you had to understand that you couldn't be good at everything. And, people talk a lot today about resilience. So I think the main thing that my time at university taught me was resilience. The other thing was around being creative, because the drama department gave us a lot of freedom to do our own thing and to create comedy routines or whatever. So I learned and watched people and be creative, and that was very exciting. Excuse me. So that they were very useful things. And also, I think I really learn about. I've often thought about, what did my time at university, which was 4 years, it was a joint course, English and drama. What did that really teach me? And I think the main thing it taught me was resilience. There were some fantastic actors there, people who were very, very brilliant, who went on to do extraordinary things. There were some amazing comedians there who developed their own, material. People like Rick Mail and Adrian Edmondson. And so it gave me a sense of what good looked like. I think without realizing it, there was a funny kind of review thing that I did, where really all I was just being me. And that was what, if you could say that you've got any kind of a talent, that was my talent, in that I was very good at being me. And, that is the thing that I've been able to carry through. So, yeah, I think the main thing that time at university taught me was resilience. And the other thing was teamwork, was working together to make something good. And, whether your role was on stage or off stage, the whole, making a production brilliant takes a lot of people doing many different things well. And while I was at university, to earn money, I worked in a theatre. I worked as a lighting assistant, and I helped with sound. And that gave me a real taste for what I might want to do in the future. I loved that feeling of being part of a team. So those years, both the formal learning, if you like, at university, and then the stuff I did to earn a bit of money for me, really helped me when I went forward in my career. I loved working in a team. I still do. That's the thing that excites me. And I understood that, life can sometimes be quite hard, and you have to push on through it.
Well, that's wonderful. That's really interesting.
Because sometimes things are tough, aren't they, Luke? You know what I mean? And the fact that things are tough, on one particular day, doesn't mean they're going to be tough tomorrow. And that, I think, is something, it's just so important for all of us to know that not to get too bogged down in what is hard now, and to always think, right, well, I will have a go. I will have a go at that. And sort of explore the things where you feel, actually, I'm no good at acting. That's never going to be my thing. But I am quite good at asking questions. That could be my thing. Yeah. Life gives us all sorts of opportunities.
Are there any actors or actresses who inspired you?
Oh, wow. I watch people all the time. People like, older actors like Helen Mirren, I think is just fantastic. I love watching her. And unforgivably, I'm going to forget the actor's name, but on Saturday, I watched there was a new film about Bob Dylan, and there was an actor in that film who he gave an amazing performance. But the thing that really impressed me was that to be convincing, as Bob Dylan, who well, obviously that iconic folk musician initially, and then rock musician, he had to learn how to play guitar, and that was just, to me, it was mind blowing that an actor could do that and be. I completely believed he was Bob Dylan. So I'm constantly stunned by actors, and I love film particularly, and actors who can take me into their world and make me believe that I'm, eavesdropping on their world. I think it's a wonderful talent. So there's many people who I find inspiring because they're able to do that. Yeah, you can tell me, Tom. I'm really rubbish on actors' names. Doesn't matter how famous they are.
Yeah, it's Timothée Chalamet.
Yes, that's it. Yes, he was just brilliant in that movie. Really brilliant.
So you've got a charity called TeenTech. When did that start?
It started in 2008. 2008. We ran the first TeenTech event, but the idea, I think, had been bubbling for quite some time before that. First of all, I'll just explain briefly what TeenTech does, which is around helping young people understand all of the different opportunities in digital science, tech, engineering, applied sciences, and most importantly, helping them see that they might enjoy working in those spaces. So that's what we do. And the reason we do it, I think, began, first of all, with my own daughter, who at that time was a teenager. And when I used to say to her, you want to think about working in tech, Rose. And she would go, oh, why would I want to do that? Oh, it's so boring. And that was because of the experiences that she had at school. And I thought that was just my daughter being my daughter. And my job at the time, I was working as a reporter for breakfast radio. And that got me out into many different communities, including lots of schools. And when I was just chatting off mic to young people, they said exactly the same thing as my daughter. Oh, why would we want to work in tech? Oh, that's so boring. And I thought, oh gosh, this is terrible. They're surrounded by all sorts of exciting tech companies on their way to school. They've got no idea what's happening. So I went into a school and recorded some interviews with young people to really understand what the barriers were. And at the time, and I set a simple exercise where it was we were just coming up to the Olympics, and I said, think about the kind of tech that might make the experience of the Olympic Games in London more inclusive. And so while I was interviewing these students, the other students were working away, and I was absolutely stunned with the ideas that came out of what was really a 2-hour session. And I thought, gosh, this is madness. On the one hand, you've got young people saying not interested in tech. On the other hand, you can see how creative they are and how many ideas that they could bring into this space. So that was the moment where I thought I need to do something. And we ran the first TeenTech event about 9 months later with 400 students. And the lovely thing about TeenTech is it's always been about the young people. Young people have set the direction, and we've always been, fully inclusive. And over the years, as you can imagine, we've changed what we do. We've extended what we do. We now work with about 14 to 15,000 young people every year, and support their own creativity and their own ambitions. I think that's it. What TeenTech is all about. It's not about doing things to young people. It's about listening and giving young people an opportunity to say what they think about everything, and particularly finding solutions to some of the big problems that they might face on a daily basis, or that we all face, or that the planet faces. And it's been a fabulous experience for me, listening to all of those young people and their ideas. And along the way, many young people say that TeenTech has made a big difference to their lives, both in what they decided to do, the confidence that it gave them, and their ability to share what they think and feel with others. So that's probably a very long answer to your question about TeenTech and why I do it. I just think the world would be a much better place if more of us were having a say in what we really need for a better future. Because a better future isn't always about the latest widget or the snazziest mobile phone. It's about much more than that. And it's not about making money, but it is about making sure that things are fair, and that more people have much happier and fulfilling lives.
And have you won any awards for this?
Yes, I mean, TeenTech has won a lot of awards. So we've won awards for inclusivity. We've won awards for our programs. I mean, I think I'm now on the 10th honorary degree for the work that we're doing with TeenTech. But those credits go to the whole team. We've got a really fabulous team. And what is lovely is that when I talk about the team, I'm talking about lots of young people as well, who we have a young person's steering group for TeenTech, and they do set the direction that we go in, and they help us understand what's really needed. The things that are going to help them develop either skills for the future. By skills, it's not just technical skills, it's personal skills. I mean, what you're doing here is amazing. The fact you run this podcast, and you're having to think of questions, and I'm sure at times it might feel slightly stressful and all the rest of it, but this is a really powerful way to gain really good experience, proper experience for the future.
You're a patron as well for the Royal Osteoporosis Society. Can you tell us more about that as well?
Yeah. I think if there was a bit of a thread that runs through my work is, and you'll understand this, is that it always feels good if you feel you're making a difference in some way. When I worked on children's programs, I felt that, I felt that we were making a real difference to the lives of many children. It was the same thing on Tomorrow's World. And with the National Osteoporosis Society, many people, men and women, have low bone density, which means that as they get older, their bones get more fragile and they can break. But there's lots of things you can do to prevent multiple fractures. The statistics are really high. Something like 1 in 3 or even 1 in 2 people will suffer a fracture due to osteoporosis. So I got involved with the society because I felt that there was more work needed just to raise the profile of this condition, that this wasn't something that was inevitable when you got older. It was something that was both preventable and treatable. So that was one of the reasons I got involved. And also in the process, I discovered I had low bone density. And that was very helpful because I could change the kind of exercise I did, and also change some of the lifestyle things that I did to make it, and hopefully that has made a difference. So that was why I got involved with the National Osteoporosis Society. And if you know anyone, let's say over the age of 30, because that's when your bones start to lose density, connecting them with the National Osteoporosis Society can be a very good thing.
Have you been to any festivals with the TeenTech?
Yes, so the specific things we do, we run festivals all over the UK. And at these festivals, we bring together around 30 different schools, students from different schools, about 40 different science and tech companies for we call it like a very structured day. So there are timetabled activities that students do, and they're all very, very different. So there might be an activity that focuses on cybersecurity and scams, or there might be an activity that focuses on veterinary science. Very, very different. And the purpose of the day is to expose young people and their teachers and carers to the wide range of opportunities out there that are open to everyone. So the festivals were a lot of fun, and we always really look forward to them, and meeting all of the young people. And then there's always a next step, which is, have you got an idea that could make life better, simpler, safer, or more fun? Because if you have, we'll help you and connect you with some really interesting people who can help you develop that idea. So many students then work on a project because they've got an idea, and because we connect them with people to help, we're not expecting them to do it on their own or within a class situation or a college situation. We can connect them with mentors and supporters who will help them develop those projects. So we've had, and the projects are many and varied. We always really look forward to seeing what students choose to work on. So, for instance, you might have someone who designed this one idea from a student was a toothbrush that helped young people clean their teeth properly. but also help their parents and carers understand, were they missing any bits? which bits were was the young person not cleaning particularly well? And it was very clever, this toothbrush. So that was one idea. Another idea was there was these three girls, and one of them had got a dog, and they wanted to develop a toy for this dog because it was both blind and destructive. And so we connected them with a university who helped them with 3D printing and everything to make a toy for this blind and very destructive dog. So, the projects are just very, very different. And most of them are very personal. So a student may have a relation with some kind, maybe a health condition, perhaps, I don't know, Alzheimer's, or they might have, there's an idea that we're looking at the moment where a student has got actually brittle bone disease and has come up with a new kind of like an emergency support for a broken leg or a broken arm if you're out somewhere and you're at a distance from a hospital. So often the idea comes from the person because it's a problem which is happening in their world. So those are, just some of the things that TeenTech do. And they have real world repercussions. So another group of students in Lancashire are now working with the NHS because they've got an idea for revolutionising the menu which is served to young people in hospitals. So it's about, choosing an idea and going forward with help from TeenTech.
So that is how TeenTech began then?
It began with young people, and I think that is the thing I feel really proud of, is that young people told us what they needed, and they shared the things which excited them. And so it was, I often describe TeenTech as being a grassroots organisation tackling global problems. So we're not about saying to young people, this is what you should do, be an engineer, be a scientist. That is not what we're about. We start with young people. What are you interested in? Are you interested in animals? Are you interested in music? Are you interested in football? Are you interested in technology? Are you interested in hair dryers? We had a student who designed a completely different hairdryer because he'd watched his mum, who is a hairstylist, and he thought, I don't understand why do hair dryers even look like that? They're clearly, they're not very ergodynamic. There must be a better way of designing a hairdryer. So that TeenTech is it began with young people, and we take the ideas and the feelings of young people very seriously. It's not about saying, oh, that's a good idea for a 17-year-old. It's about, that is a good idea, full stop, and someone needs to hear about this. And we get those ideas in front of industry.
When you're saying how old my people were, how old was you when you started out?
Okay, so in terms of work, I'm just trying to work it out now, because I took a year off before I went to university, which at that time was very unusual. And the reason I took that year out was because I had no idea what I really wanted to do. I was totally lost. I thought, I don't know. And I took a job actually as an usherette in a theatre. And then I did stage electrics, and I also worked at a local radio station. I did these two things in my year out. And then I did 4 years at university. So I was 23 when I did that first job on Saturday mornings. That's how old I was. And obviously I've mentioned how I feel that the BBC took a big risk on me. And I asked, this lovely person, Rose McGill, why on earth did you give me that job? And no experience, etc. And she said, well, when we interviewed you, we asked you one question, which was, where did you get your boots from? And you talked for 35 minutes. And we thought, you'll probably be okay on live telly. And I just thought it was just such a lovely thing to say. So, yeah. And that was sort of, I've always, held on to that. And the reason I'm mentioning it is because what they liked about me was something that often gets mentioned, isn't it? It's like authenticity and being yourself and being you. And after that, the irony is, after that interview, after I'd had that first interview for the job, I got on the train to go back to Manchester, and I thought I'd absolutely flunked it. I can remember eating a meat pie and thinking, what an idiot you are. They have asked you all sorts of questions and you've given ridiculous answers. And the reason being was because I couldn't prepare for the interview because I didn't know what the job actually was. I didn't know it was a children's program. I had to go in completely blind. So I thought I'd messed it up. And I couldn't believe it when the phone rang a couple of days later and they said, we'd like you to do some filming for us. And that all happened in the middle of my...
What children's program were it?
Yeah, so it was the very first Saturday morning program, and it was called Swap Shop. And it was the first time that on telly, the phone number would appear. And if you ask people of a certain age, they have to be over the age of, I would say, 40 now, for the ones who watched it. They will still be able to tell you what that phone number was. And by phoning up, they could directly ask a question to, if we had pop stars in the studio or we had David Attenborough talking about animals, or they could phone in with the answer to a quiz question or whatever. But the program was called Swap Shop, and the swapping carried through the whole show. So there used to be like an outside broadcast where you had the studio, and then somewhere, it could be all over the UK, a person called Keith Checkerman would pop up, and children would be able to go to that location and swap things. So that was the nucleus of the show. But it was a program that had a lot of warmth, and what was lovely about it was how deeply the production team and all of the presenters really cared about those young people. It was a very, very special show. And the lovely thing about it was it was a program that allowed you to be yourself. And you were not given a script. You were not told what to do. You were not told what questions to ask. You were simply allowed to be yourself, which was fabulous and very fortunate for me, because I would never be able to remember a script. Yeah.
You had a hit with the brown sauce.
I know that. Do you know, you can find this video on YouTube. And there's quite a funny story behind that, because it was never intended to be released as a single. We did it as a bit of a joke, as a send-up of a program called Top of the Pops. So Noel wrote the song, and then Keith and I recorded the song with a man called B.A. Robertson. And we did a video, which was, again, a bit of a send up of the kind of videos which were appearing on Top of the Pops at the time. So lots of dry ice, sweeping camera shots and all the rest of it. And we didn't think anything of it. We just used it on one of our programs. And then children started asking if they could buy it. So BBC Records thought, oh, all right, let's give it a go. So they released it. And then we watched it climb the charts. It was so bizarre. And then we were on Top of the Pops. So it was completely mad. And it was just absolutely crazy. And my my future husband, Keith Checkerman, really, I mean, he had a very good voice. He really could sing. And he just went, I cannot believe that the one time I get into the charts is with you. And, because I really, find it quite hard to hold a tune. And I'm amazed that B.A. Robertson managed to coax me into being able to sing. But again, that just shows the talent of a person. He just made me relax enough to be able to hold that tune.
That's one song we'll have to check at lunch, guys.
Oh, absolutely. No, go for it. It'll make you laugh. Make you laugh. And just so you know, when we kind of pitched up, you can't really see actually in the video, but I'd found this bright red kind of, it was like a sort of, I don't know, like culotte kind of thing. But it said New York on it, but it only said New York if you stood in front of a mirror, which meant that if you were on camera, you couldn't see New York. So that I just found that a bit, quietly funny. And Keith pitched up wearing the jacket, and I went, "Oh God, you can't wear that jacket, Keith. That doesn't look right at all. You're going to have to turn it inside out, and then you'll get away with it." So he turned his jacket inside out. So that's just so you know when you watch the video that I made him turn his jacket inside out. So yeah, but it was a lot of fun. We loved doing it, and yeah, it often gets played that by people, but because it was bought by so many children, now many people in their 40s or 50s tell me it was the first record they ever bought was Brown Sauce, and I say, what amazing good taste you had.
What of those things are you proud of?
It's a very good question, that, Daniel. What do I feel proud of? And I think I feel proud of the perhaps some of the decisions that I made along the way. Some decisions, you have to choose, obviously, between different things. And when I worked on a program called Tomorrow's World, which was a science and tech show, if you worked on that program, you weren't allowed to do, at least at the time when I worked on it, any kind of advertising. Now, again, back in the day, we weren't paid a fortune to work on Tomorrow's World. And several times I was offered a bonkers amount of money to advertise certain products, but that would have meant and as an example of it was very silly money. It was like probably 4 or 5 times what I would earn in a year on Tomorrow's World for going and doing one day's work to promote a product. But I loved Tomorrow's World so much, there was no way I would sacrifice the work I was doing on Tomorrow's World for going and promoting a cereal product or a washing powder. And so I turned those things down. I feel very proud that I did that. Makes no sense financially whatsoever. I'm not saying that everybody has to follow in my footsteps, but I was very proud that, I did that. But then in terms of the other things are the sort of a bigger sense of what I feel proud of, what both Tomorrow's World and TeenTech achieved was Tomorrow's World. And we didn't even realize this at the time, but it inspired so many people who are now working in science and technology. So they watched the program as young people, and something about whatever they saw on a particular show really lit their fire. And then they went to work in science and tech, and I meet them all the time because they come up and tell me. So I was at a party over Christmas, and someone who is a pharmacist came and said, the reason I'm a pharmacist is, and it happens a lot, and that's down to the whole team on Tomorrow's World. So I feel very proud of the impact of Tomorrow's World. And then with TeenTech, I feel proud of the impact we have sometimes over time on young people who, some people, become really quite disaffected with education. And, so there are students who we work with and who we know have got a lot of talent and potential. And so we might work with them with over 2 or 3 or 4 years, but seeing those students really thrive makes me feel very proud of the whole team. So those things, I mean, that's why I get up in the morning, is, can our team make a difference in some way by making a connection, connecting, either a group of young people or an individual with someone who might inspire them, support them, help them take the next step in whatever they want to do. Yeah, so those things, I feel very proud of what TeenTech does. And we do things in a slightly different way, and I think that works for some people.
Please, for what advice do you have for presenters?
One of the best things, and you've done it brilliantly, is number one, doing it, because it can feel quite scary. So doing it more and more, you get better and better at it. And number two, the most important part of presenting is listening. Really listening to what someone says, because often what you want to ask next will come out of what they say. And sometimes I learned the real value of, when someone is saying something, of not saying anything, because if you leave a pause, people will often say the thing that you're really wanting them to say. It's quite interesting. And I learned that because so many times when we were filming, we would ask go through an interview, stop filming, and then whoever we were talking to would say exactly what we really needed. So sometimes not being afraid of a silence is a good thing to know. So I guess those things I would say. And again, I never like to rehearse. I like to do things live for the first time, because I think people, when you chat to them, are generally much better the first time they tell you a story or do something, rather than if you keep doing it again and again and again and again. So thinking carefully about, what would I like? What do I really want to know about this person?
What you are plans for the future?
Yeah, so we've got on the work front, lots of things happening with TeenTech in terms of festivals, the TeenTech Award program. We've got a program for younger people called TeenTech City of Tomorrow, a program where we're asking young people to think about the ethical side of innovation. What do young people want? So students all over the UK are sharing their thoughts for the young person's charter of ethical innovation. So on the work front, there's all of that. On the personal front, I now have a little grandson called Hector. And it's so lovely experiencing the world through a 2-year-old. And that teaches you so much. I love the things that fascinate him because he sees things very differently. So, for instance, at Christmas, Hector was obsessed not with presents, but with the Christmas tree. For Hector, the Christmas tree was absolutely magical and he loved it. And he talked endlessly about the Christmas tree. And if I was putting him to bed, he would lie in his cot going, and on the Christmas tree, there is cow, because a funny little cow bauble on the Christmas tree. So it's lovely being able to almost relive the experience you have of the world because you're seeing it through his eyes. So that's very, very special. Yeah, so those are the two things for the future. Lots of things for TeenTech still, but also time with my lovely grandson.
I know Chris work with you.
Chris, oh, do you? Yeah, brilliant. Although,
I know the other one. Chris was married to you, didn't you?
yeah. Well, that's good.
And you was
Yeah.
married to him, didn't you? Yeah, right. So you got a B what? B A B E N.
Yeah,
A B E N.
yeah.
I do know.
All right. Oh, brilliant. No, I've been very lucky, Sarah, in working with some fantastic people, and they've become lifelong friends.
Yes, I know them right there, wasn't you? That doing brilliant, doing that show. Because I watched it every year.
Well, it's, as I say, it's always a team effort, and it's so important when you work with people, both on screen, and I mean, I married one of my co-presenters, and then others who've just been lovely. So, from the swap shop days, like, Noel and John and Keith, and tomorrow's, Judith and Howard and Kieran. I mean, Kieran was round here last Sunday having Sunday lunch. So they've all remained really, really close friends. And
I watched it and I see a picture of them. Chris is married to you. And you got children.
Yes. So Sarah knows that you married one of your presenters, I think, is what she's going at there.
yeah, Keith, he was bonkers, but a lot of fun. And so, because the kind of work, and you'll know what it's like when you're either in front of a mic or in front of a television camera, being able to trust the people who are next to you is so important, because sometimes you might forget something or get something slightly wrong or whatever, and knowing that they will help you as opposed to be, I don't know, sniggering away and finding it funny and at your expense, is really important. You want people always to feel like they're on your side and are going to help. And back in the early days, when I was first starting and was so inexperienced, and I got a lot of help from people who, mainly, it wasn't that they said, no, Maggie, don't do it that way, do it this way. That it wasn't about that. But what they did was they gave me a lot of confidence in, when I did do something well, they would tell me, "Oh, that was really good. That was really good. That was a good question to ask," or "Loved the way you introduced that." And those little things where someone says, "That was good," it does something inside. It makes you better next time. And they, those people, those friends understood that, when to say, "That was really good," or when to say, "I really don't think you should wear that jumper anymore," which sometimes they said. So, yeah, no, those people I worked with were very, very special. They were all very different, and the friendships live on. And so with the people who you saw on camera, but also the people who were the producers and the researchers and the camera operators, they've remained very good friends. I hope that answers your question, and I'm sorry I couldn't hear it properly.
Maggie, my new kids tagging and from the pops in everything.
Oh, did you? Oh, they on one of those replays? Yes. Yeah, that's right. Yes, they every so often on one of those, they go do, like, I don't know, the 80s Top of the Pops or whatever, and that brown sauce pops up. And yes, I get messages from all sorts of people. I remember that recent one that you would have seen. My friend Kate messaged me and went, "Turn the telly on." They're playing brown sauce again. So yes, it does get played every so often.
I'll probably get it up on YouTube and actually be
You
like,
can,
"Oh
yeah,
yeah, I've heard this before."
Yes, it's there for to shame me forever.
I'll probably get it up on YouTube and be like, "Oh yeah, heard this and before."
Yeah, I know. It's a very very silly video that we did, but it captured the mood of the time, I think, because the video featured so many kind of icons from that time, from the era. So it was the words that Noel wrote were very clever in their way, and references to different people. It is quite funny, really.
Now you said university of your art, in university.
Okay, I went to university in Manchester, and I chose it, I think, mainly because my school took me there on a trip, and I really liked the feel of the place. But it was a really good choice for me. Anyway, as I say, I met a lot of friends, I learned a lot, and I loved the city, and I still do. I mean, I was actually born in Manchester, but we moved away when I was 5, but I always felt like there was a connection. So I loved my time at Manchester University. And then when my daughter was trying to decide where should she go to do, she wanted to do geography. And she couldn't decide between Manchester and Birmingham. And I tried to be neutral about it. But my daughter said it was always obvious where I wanted her to go. So my daughter went to Manchester as well and had a great time there. So it was a good university.
So thank you joining us today. And thank you, Automation, with us today. And so thank you again. And before you sign off, any ideas to end the show before recording the multimedia? Thanks very much.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for all of your questions. That's great. And I don't know whether you can, whether you saw, but my cat has now joined us. He's purring like anything, so I apologise if he's affecting the sound. But in terms of have I got anything else to say? I always have tons to say, but mainly I think it is just that message of, in life, you will encounter all sorts of people who can be very good at telling you what you can't do. And it doesn't matter what it is that you might decide to do, but the people who are saying you can't. So, like, many years ago, I ran a marathon, and I hadn't done any running beforehand. And I remember the lady at the local pub saying, I don't know that you should be running a marathon at your age. So there will always be those people, niggling away saying you can't do it. And when I set TeenTech up, there were people telling me I wouldn't be able to do it. So it's not that you should ignore any advice that you're given. It's just that you can choose which advice you take and which you don't. So that is what I would always say, is listen to people, and then you carry on and do what you feel is best for you. And if you have an idea or a project or a thought that you think, actually, I think this would be a good thing to do and I'd be really interested in, it's well worth doing. My daughter met her husband at school. They're now still together, however many years later. I think it's about 18 years now they've been together. And he's in a band. And when he was at school, his teachers spent a lot of time telling him, stop wasting your time messing about thinking you're going to be a rock musician, and knuckle down and do some work. And Harry has had his first album went to number 1. All of his albums have been in the top 5. And he was invited to a school reunion, and he had great pleasure in showing the teacher who'd written thing saying, forget working as in the music industry, knuckle down. But so, yeah, that's what I would say, is you never know what the future holds for you. And also you never know what you can do, because when I ran that marathon, I thought I could only run 200 yards, but, with training and with support, I ran 26 miles. And the same goes for so many things in life. There are so many things that you surprise yourself that you're able to do. So that is what I'd like to finish up on.
Thank you for listening to this episode for the PKC Podcast Corner. If you went to listen to our mini show all about visual effect, people with learning disabilities, you can ask for the PFKC Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or you can visit our website PFKC.com to keep up to date with our podcast. Follow us on Facebook, X and Instagram by searching for the PFKC Podcast.